So,
Hey,
hey guys, welcome. How you guys doing? This is our wealth building session with Brett Tanner. And I just wanted to jump in to introduce Brett to you once again. Some of you were here with us the last time we had Brett on. And for some of you, it's your first time jumping into this. So not only is Brett somebody that, sure, he is somebody who helped me a ton with my real estate business years back. And I'm talking, gosh, at this point, maybe 15 years ago that I got the opportunity to come visit his office, and we grew a bunch. But you know what's really a lot worse than not making a lot of money is making a bunch of money and then ending up with zero at the end of the year, and your wealth built going nowhere, your net worth being flat, despite the fact you're earning. It is literally better to not earn and have that happen than to earn and be like, what the heck? I'm exactly where I was 3 years ago. For me, that started taking a big change, a big shift once I started talking to Brett about wealth building, about wealth creation, about wealth preservation, about investing, about the way that we can take what we make. Because let me tell you something. On the opposite end of me was my brother, who earned way less than me, but was far better with what he did with it and grew a seven-figure net worth with far less than what I was making. So in any case, no matter where you are in your income world, it doesn't really matter if you don't master what Brett Tanner is going to bring to you right now. And so it is definitely my pleasure because I get to enjoy beautiful resorts like the one I'm at right now. Much thanks to Brett. Or at least I get to do it without stress because my investments get to pay for it. So, Brett, why don't you jump in and take it away, my friend?
Well, thank you, Dan. That was an incredible intro. And every time I'm with you, I learn so much. So thank you for that intro. And yes, that was a perfect segue to it actually doesn't matter what you earn. Now, don't get me wrong, earning more money is incredible. But to Dan's point, I know people that their earning potential isn't as high and they're ridiculously wealthy. And I know people that make $5 million a year or $10 million a year and have virtually nothing to show for it. And so the strategies I'm going to teach you are things that I put in play. Nothing's kind of theory. It's all things that I'm actually executing my business today. So I am so excited to share with you guys today and in the upcoming sessions. So with that, I'm going to jump in, share my screen, and we are going to start. So I'm going to go present. Are we cool? Everybody can see my screen?
We're good to go.
Cool. All right, perfect. So the first place I want to start is time. To be ridiculously wealthy, you think differently about time. It was a really hard way for me to find to insert an Iron Man quote in any presentation. But no amount of money ever bought a second of time. So anytime I think about wealth, the first place my head goes, is time. We all have the same 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, yet some people are getting radically different outcomes with their time. And you first want to think different about your time, and we'll show you in a minute how it relates to your money. So your time is the most valuable asset you have. You absolutely cannot afford to waste it. And so one of my favorite quotes as you think about it, people are stingy with their money, even though they can go replace it. They're frivolous with their time, even though they can never get it back. And so I will tell you that every day I go through my day. At the end of the day, I sit back and I look at how could I have gotten more out of today? And the analogy I use, if you ever had a spill on your kitchen counter and you go wipe it up with a rag and you go wring that out, you can wring all that water out. But if you squeeze a little more, you can get a little more out of it. And that's where we've got to get better with our time and with our money. And so I want to walk you through in these next sessions how I think you can change radically in a year. But I want to start off with an exercise about time that really changed how I thought about time and had a huge impact on the course of my life. And so what you're looking at on the screen right now is every one of those small boxes is a week of your life. So if you see the top row, there's 52 boxes across the top, and going down, that's years of your life. And so I had this chart. It's about 2 feet wide, about 3 feet long, put in my closet every day when I would get dressed in the morning. Every Monday, I would check off one of these boxes. It's a week of my life. And in doing it, it centers me into what matters. Am I doing the work that matters? Am I doing the things with the people that matter? And am I living a life that matters? And so the most important thing is to figure out, what do you actually want out of your life? And so by transporting yourself at some point in the future And then looking back, how do I go figure out exactly what I want at, say, 30 years? And one of the exercises we'll have at the end of this session is we're going to send you out an exercise to do to go create a net worth plan to be worth at least $50 million or more. You can't make it less than 50. And it doesn't matter how much money you have today, but I want you to come to the call armed with your plan to be worth $50 million or more. And don't focus on how you're going to do it. This is a dreaming exercise. And yes, every single one of you can do it. And actually, when you go through the exercise, you're going to realize how simple it can be. And so we've got to start by thinking and getting really clear on what will help you live your ideal life. So I want to play a game before we start, do a little exercise. And if you would chime in the chat, I want you to go through this. And I want to take your current age, subtract that from 90, which should give you a 2-digit number. And then if you'll multiply that by 365, which should give you a 4 or 5-digit number. And if we'll start throwing some numbers in the chat here. So I know that I look 25 years old, but I am 45. All that white hair. Oh, there we go. We got some numbers in here. Jamie, 22. Let's see who has the highest number here. 22,630 looks to be the highest. 20,019, 22, 22. Oh, Jason, okay, we've got 2170. All right, all the numbers are firing in there. It looks like 22. I always find out who's who's got the most days here. And it looks like 20. Oh, Ashley, 24, 455. And so the math I just gave you is the number of days that you have left on this planet under the most optimal scenario possible. And I realize you might go sitting there like, what a weird way to start a wealth building event with telling me my time's limited. But the reason I do that is you have plenty of time to do the things that matter, but you've got to get specific. And realizing your time is limited is the best possible frame for you to figure out what you want out of your life. And I think about this all the time. I look at every day. It's precious. It's beautiful. And you've got to go figure out how to maximize every single day. And so I encourage you as we go through this to think about not only time, but we're going to get into all the tactics and strategy or money. But it's so critical to realize that you will not get today back. We've got to get more out of every day, and we've got to think about it differently. And so when you think about time, so I think about different increments of time. So first area I look at is how many winters do I have left? And there's an incredible book by Bill Perkins I would encourage everyone to go read. It's called Die with Zero. Bill Perkins, Die with Zero is the book. And in that book, he talks about, I actually disagree with the fundamental principle of the book, which is dying with zero. But his point is that, who's better off? The person that dies with $100 million in your bank account at the end of their life that never lived, or the person that didn't have that kind of wealth, but they lived fully and lived their wildest fantasy. And one of the points of the book is there's better seasons of life to do certain things. As an example, if you want to go snow skiing or snowboarding, that's a better activity at age 45 than it is at 85. Not saying you can't go ski at 80, and I know longevity, but there's better seasons of your life. For example, backpacking in Europe might be awesome in your 20s, but as a 45-year-old, I kind of want to be at a resort like Dan was out there. And so I think about, all right, in the winters, when's the best time? Now, I've got little kids. They're not that little anymore. My oldest is 17. I've got a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old. Well, in Arizona, I don't get a lot of snow winter, so I've got to go up to my cabin. But you bet, make no mistake, when it snows, what am I going to do? I'm going to maximize the opportunity. I've got to go take advantage of the opportunity of time. For example, ocean swims. The average person, I know Dan lives out in San Diego, so is Kyle. I don't live by the ocean. There's no ocean in Arizona. And so the average person only spends about 2 or 3 days a year in the ocean. So again, is there better times in your life to go spend time in the ocean? Wealth gives you options to live your ideal life. Football seasons. I'm not a huge sports nut. One of my really good friends, his dad, their number one thing that they did growing up is they watched the Super Bowl every single year. And my friend called me, he said, hey, I'm not going to see the Super Bowl with my dad this year. And I asked him the question, well, why not? He said, I'm a little busy. I think I'm going to do it with my friends. And I said, well, how old's your dad? We said he's 83 years old. I said, well, how many Super Bowls do you think your dad has left? Do you think you're being selfish? And I was just challenging him as a good friend does to realize that times matter. You don't have as much time as you want to spend with people forever, and you've got to think differently about time. So, Taco Tuesdays, for those out there, I've only got about 2,500 of these left. I got to be really specific on what I choose. I can't take the decision lightly. I've got to think differently. And here's where the math gets really interesting for me. That picture on my screen, the guy on the left, that's my hero. It's my dad. Lady on my right there is my mom. And so if you don't live in the same city as your parents, this is real data. The average person will see their parents 2 days per time, 5 trips per year, 10 total days per year if you don't live in the same city as your parents.
Sorry.
And so that was hard math for me. And so I did this exercise about 15 years ago. And unfortunately, the instructor just gave us that math and he walked out of the room, which wasn't helpful. But I disagreed with his premise, which was if my dad's, right now as he's 84 years old, if I lived the math, if I'm an average person, which no one on this call is average, you didn't come up here to be average, you wouldn't be here. So I'm going to show you how you can change the math. But if I live the average life, I don't live in the same city as my parents, I've got 84 to 90. If my dad lives to 90 years old on the most optimal scenario, I got 60 days left with him. So I realized this, about when he was 70 years old. And so I immediately took this exercise and changed it. And I was like, well, how can I get more time with my parents? And so back then I liked to golf. I didn't love to golf, but my dad would go on these couple trips a year. And I took over these golf trips with his buddies just so I could go spend more time with my dad. I ended up bringing them to Kauai with me for Christmas. And I started changing the math around the people that I love and I wanted to spend more time with. And so as you go through this, wealth is a tool for you to get more of what you want. Relationships are what makes life special. How are you thinking about those relationships and spending time differently? The next one's your kids. It's a picture of my kids. Again, they're much older now. The reality is, for all of us with kids, you'll spend 90% of the time that you will spend with your kids in their entire lives while they're up to 18 years old while they live in your house. I'll say that again, 90% of the time you'll spend with your kids or while they're underneath your roof. Now, what's the trick to that? How do you build rituals and traditions that live beyond that time so that you don't go to the 10 days a year if they don't move somewhere else? The running joke in my house, that's why my kids aren't able to go to college somewhere else. They need to live with us forever and they can't leave Arizona. That's obviously a joke, but I've got to start thinking differently about time and making sure that I'm maximizing with the people I love. The screensaver that sits on my phone every day when I wake up, it says, they say we have 2 lives. The second one begins when we realize we only have one. So start thinking about your time, and then let's bend that back now to how do we live an epic life? How do we create epic moments? And yes, at the bottom, that is Exuma in the Bahamas, where you can actually go swim with the pigs in the ocean. It's insane. This is what it's all about for me. Wealth allows me to go spend the time I want with the people I love doing the most epic things on this planet. And I did it all by using my skills that I have as a real estate agent that allowed me to create that opportunity. And so that's what I want to share with you, how I was able to do that using my skills as a real estate agent to create radically different outcomes in my life. And so when I start here, there's a story that all of us have about money. For most of us, we have programming around our money that's been inside of us since we were like 10 years old at our family dinner table. And that same story, that program has been running. And each of you have to go back and visit that story. And I'm going to give you an example of how it might be showing up today. So I want you to answer a few questions as we run through this. I want you to imagine, go back to your 10 years old. You're sitting at your family dinner table. The topic of money comes up. Not did you have any as a kid, but was money scarce or abundant? Just write down one word, scarce or abundant. Not many did you have it. Or you could throw it in the chat if you want. Scarce. We got some people say scarce. So in my family, we had no money. My dad was a really abundant thinker, that he believed that we were going to have all the money in the world. The Tanners hadn't quite figured out yet how we were going to do it. And so you can learn from either one. For the people that are saying scarce, I want you to think, I love Josh says one parent was scarce, one was abundant. So when you go back, for the people that had scarcity, is there anywhere in your life today that some of that scarcity is still showing up? As an example, did your parents say, hey, make sure you turn off the lights in the rooms? right? You got to go flip the lights on. That was always the thing my parents said. Now, my wife didn't have those same parents. Apparently, they just said turn all the lights on and leave them on all the time because that's her deal. But so that's part of your story. You got to work through, or am I still reliving some of that scarce or abundant programming from back then? The next question: was money applauded or feared or criticized? When you heard about someone that came into money, was it like, oh man, that's amazing for them, congratulations? Or was it feared or criticized? Again, we're going to your story. And so all of this is you're living this today, and we've got to go back and change that programming. Where I grew up, money was applauded. The entire little small town I was from, money was hated. The people that had success, they did something, they cheated someone, they did something wrong. And I always thought, oh, if I'm ever successful, I got to hide it from others and like not talk about it. And what I realized, I mean, look, we've got an entire group here that is based on how do we help everyone else get more out of their business and more out of their lives and more out of what they want, which couldn't be in a more abundant, applauded audience. And so again, think about that story. Next question for you. I'd have you, if you've got your notes out, write a few sentences. What does wealth actually mean to you? Just write a sentence or two. I'll give you a couple seconds here. What does wealth actually mean? The reality is wealth is so much more than money. It's actually not the top 3 or 4 things when people have it. Now, if you don't yet have enough money to hit your basic needs, right? Sure, money is going to be the top of your list. But once you have enough money, wealth actually isn't related to money. I love the words over here, freedom. I love that. Security, choices, options, right? So dig into that. The mission statement for my life is freedom. It's all about getting free. It's the whole be wealthy statement, which is freedom of the work I do, how I do it, who I do it with, freedom of choice. I wanted the freedom of choice. Last question for you. As you think about your story, who or what causes benefit most when you become wealthy? The reality is we'll do incredible things to benefit ourselves. We'll do 10 times more to benefit others. Who or what causes benefit most when you become wealthy? The benefits of you doing it, everyone on here is going to be ridiculously wealthy. There's no question about that. But who or what benefits when you do it? A lot of family and loved ones. I would have you dig. That's beautiful. What else? Who else? Your community. It's been said that money is good for the good that it can do for others. So I shared this was the mission statement for my life. I don't know everyone on this call. I know many of the names on here. I don't know all your dreams and ambitions, but what I do believe is everyone wants more freedom. You may define it differently than the way I did here, but everyone's looking for more freedom in their life. So when you think freedom of choice, what does that mean to you? So Warren Buffett has this incredible 5-25 rule that I think relates to so many things in life. But he talks about go make a list of the 25 things that you want to do throughout your life. Then you circle, in his words, the top 5 that matter most to your soul. And then he says, and then never look at the other 20 ever again. And why does he say that? He says it because it'll take us away from the 5 that matter. So you can have everything you want. You can have anything you want. You just can't have everything you want. You could build a world where you have everything you want in time, but you can't have it all right now. And so life is about choosing priorities and what matters most at a given moment. So I want to move to the next part, which is we teach it Be Wealthy, these 8 different pillars of wealth. And there's 2 main ideas as we go through today's session that I want you all to think about. And there's 2 main ideas. Number 1, I believe everyone watching this is running a bank. I want you to think of yourself as a bank. You've got deposits, you've got withdrawals. In that context, you're a bank. Banks are the smartest, most well-run businesses out there. And if you think about it, I mean, what business is someone sitting next to you at the cashier, at the teller line? You're depositing your money, they're paying you very little, and they're literally borrowing, someone else is borrowing 3 tellers down, and they're lending out your money and they're making a spread. And so I want you to think about how you can become a bank. The other idea I want to go through is everyone on here is running a family office. If you went back 15 years ago, a family office would be an office of a family that maybe has got 20 or 50 or $100 million, there might be multiple families that come together to manage the assets. And what they do is they bring in a CPA and an attorney and a banker, and they bring all of these services in house. Well, what's so cool is technology's gotten better, and there's groups like this out there to where everyone's running a family office. So you may choose to outsource your accounting or your CPA work, but all of you are running a family office. You've got resources to deploy. And inside of these 8 pillars are the ways that you build your wealth. It's the investments that you pick, the vehicles, the debt structure you use, the tax strategies, entity and trust structures, business management, your legacy plan, financials management, and lastly, insurance and protections. And so as we go through this next series, I'm going to walk you through these different pillars and how they apply to your world and how you can create more wealth by thinking about them differently. And we've given you a workbook that you can fill that out. So we know all that. We know time's valuable. We know money and wealth's important. And we know we all want more freedom. So how should we be thinking about money? So this is an incredible slide the team put together, going back to 2009. If you could turn back time to 2009, what would you do? Would anyone on here, just so you can throw in the chat, if you could go back to 2009 and whatever market you're in, would you have chosen to buy more real estate in 2009? Anybody would anyone have done it, want to buy more? Am I the only one? Right? Everyone overwhelmingly would say yes. But it's really helpful to go back to the past. Too busy being in fourth grade. Great answer, by the way. Who said that? That's awesome. Christian, great answer. So if you could go back to 2009, what might you do different? So what could you have done with $70,000 in 2009? You could have bought this beauty right here, the Lexus LS 460 for $69,215. If you held that all the way through to right now, it's worth $9,800. It went down at a decline in value of 85%. Now, we obviously know we wouldn't go back to 2009, bought a bunch of cars. That would have been our jam. But we could have bought this little gem. This is from Phoenix, Arizona. This is really the absolute low point of our market. 2009, all of our houses in Phoenix kind of look like this. You could have bought this thing for $68,000. Mind you, there was an unlimited supply of these at this point in time. It was below replacement cost, $47 a square foot, and you could have bought it. And what would have happened if you had held it? So you bought it for $68,000 in 2009. It would have sold in 2005 for about $380,000. So you had $318,000 in equity growth, not including the rental income. If you took it, what was the return on that over time? 29%. Annualized rate of return. Crazy amount of money. What else could we have done? We could have went to the stock market. We could have bought the total market index. And there's a book on this by Collins called The Simple Path to Wealth. And he just argues if you want the simplest path ever, you could buy the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index. Basically, you're buying a piece of America. And so all the entire stock market. Yeah, by the way, Stavros, if you could go back to 2009 and bought Bitcoin, that would have been a game changer. So you could have bought 2,800 shares for $70,000. And what would have happened? Well, as of when we did this, it would be $131. You would have gone from $25 a share to $131 a share. You would have made about $369,000 in total value, $299,000 in profit, and the return is about 26%. Now, so the question in the chat, if you could go back and you had to pick one of these two, would you pick the house or the total stock market index, VTAX and chill? What would you have bought? Now, this is an audience of all real estate people. There's going to be someone that says stock. Thank you, Kelly. It's kind of a trick question. There's no bad answers. The point is that you could have bought almost anything and made a lot of money. Are you putting your money to work, sitting it and forgetting it, and then not actually having to go back and touching it, which is what we're going to talk about. Now, some people will look at this slide and go, yeah, Brett, but you picked the low points for the stock, and then you clicked to the high point. And so you manipulated this data to show a different story. And so, all right, let's go back to the year 2000 and do it differently. Long before the crash. So we'll hit the crash in there. And still, you end up with an annualized rate of return of 13.32%. Reason I'm bringing this up, the wealthiest money managers on the planet are averaging about 11 to 12% return if you average a 30-year period of time, something that all of us can do. All of you being in real estate, you have a completely unfair advantage. So in addition to what I show you, we didn't count the rental income. I made it more equal. We didn't count depreciation. We didn't count that you could 1031 exchange it. We didn't count that there's all kinds of other advantages to investing in real estate, not including leverage. This was an all cash-based purchase. But the point I'm making is that there's opportunities come to all of us. And I believe in the next 5 years, everyone listening to this will face the greatest opportunities they've ever had in their entire life. So how will you leave here and ready yourself right now to take your unfair advantage of what's coming? Real estate agents, my fundamental belief and why I do this every single day is I believe that real estate agents should be looked at as the wealthiest industry out there. Instead of that, that's not actually how we're perceived. Yet we have access to the number one asset class out there that all wealthy people outside of private business, real estate is the number one holding of the true wealthy, right? We know that inflation will continue to go up. I filmed a podcast about this a week ago. And as we print more money, and we have to, as inflation rises, we have to print money, which causes hard asset values to rise. So it's one of those arguments that those that own hard assets, real estate, gold, Bitcoin, those are likely to go up dramatically in the future due to inflation. So if we're going to go back, we would study the greatest investor of our time, undoubtedly is Warren Buffett. Why do I say he's the greatest investor of our time? Because he didn't actually build any of the companies. He made all of his money entirely investing in the work of others. And so let's have a guess here. What is Warren Buffett's estimated net worth today? Don't go look it up. Just throw a guess in the chat. What do you believe Warren Buffett's net worth is today? Let's see some guesses here. 30 billion, 11, 50, 20, 70, 6, 50, 100, getting closer. 90 billion. Answer 160 billion, I believe it's as of a week or so ago. $160 billion. I mean, that's an incredible number. Now, what's really interesting, if you haven't watched the documentary Becoming Warren Buffett, I believe it's on HBO. It's an incredible documentary. You will find out, aside from being a genius, he's also a little bit of a weird dude. Every day, he spends less than $4 on breakfast. He goes to McDonald's every single day. He makes the choice based on how he feels about the market that day. If he feels the stock market's going to perform really well, he's going to spring for the bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit for like $3.92. If it's not going to be a big day in the market, he's just going to do it with the sausage and biscuit for like $2.78. He drinks 5 like cherry Cokes per day as a fountain. He's one of the biggest shareholders in Coca-Cola, and just a fascinating individual to look at. And one of his recent events in Omaha, he said, don't be fooled. If 2 people have $1,000 each and one invests it wisely and makes $350, he now has $1,350. Yeah, he's still alive. Sorry if I worded that wrong. He's absolutely still alive. Just stepped down as the chairman this past year, still doing his thing at the highest level in his 90s. So if one invests $1,000, makes $350, he has $1,350. The other spends $650 on vacation and posts cool pictures online. He now has $350. One guy looks like he's winning. The other is actually on the path to win. Social media is a highlight reel. In reality, most people are losing. It's really interesting when you look at the reality of online versus offline and what actually matters. So here's a check-in point for all of us we can look at. Warren Buffett chose to buy his current home for $31,000, and when he had a net worth of $1 million at age 26, 3.15% of his net worth. So, it'd be interesting. What percentage of your net worth was your purchase price? What percentage was the home as a percentage of your net worth? What percentage? Run that math back. Take the purchase price of your home divided by your net worth when you purchased it, and just go through that. And we're not saying there's right, wrong, or indifferent. This is an extreme. By the way, he still lives there. It's just interesting to compare yourself to others. I could tell you that mine was not 3.15%. It was much more, right? But we can learn so much from the decisions of others. There's a book called Buy This, Not That, written by Sam Dogen, who is the financial samurai. And when it comes to buying your primary residence, he's got a rule. He's called the 30-33 rule. And in that, he says you should spend no more than 30% of your income on the house payment. Okay, we all get that. You should have at least 30% of the purchase price saved up. He's not saying put 30% down. He advocates for putting 20% down so you avoid PMI and then saving 10% for things that come up. And the last rule of this is the hardest. You've got to limit the purchase price of your home to 3 times your income. Now, these aren't financing rules. The banks and everyone will let you get way more than this. The reality is it puts your purchase in line. So let's just we'll pick a market in the country today, and we'll imagine the home price is $1 million. So the minimum income that they would recommend is $200,000, but no one wants to do the minimum. We want to be ideal. So the ideal income to buy, because we're going to 3 times that amount, the ideal income would be $333,000 to buy $1 million home. Our ideal net worth to buy that $1 million home, $3.3 million. So if you didn't do this, it would be really, I would go through at the end of this call, go back and think about your home that you purchased and where do you fit in? Are you on the ideal side of the income, the ideal side of your net worth, or are you on the minimum required? There's no judgment. If you're on the ideal side, what does that mean? What does it actually mean if you're on the ideal? It means that you have more capital left over to go invest to grow your net worth and to grow your asset base so that you get your wealth quicker and you get to your freedom number faster. If you don't do it, it just means your plan will take longer. So I find models like this, and there's a whole bunch of them in the book, Buy This, Not That, but having different check-in points for the financial decisions that we're going to make in our life really, really matter. And so think about if you're going to go buy a $5 million home, ideally you're making $1.6 million a year. Ideally, your net worth is $16 million if you're going to make that decision. So go back, what was the price you paid for your home? What was your income that year? And what was your approximate net worth? Write those numbers down and go back through that exercise and see how you compare to the ideal. All right, we know that Warren Buffett's net worth today is $160 billion. Now, who wants to throw out some guesses on what was he worth at age 43? And I think he's 90, don't quote me, 94, 95. Someone can go check that out. I'm close on that range. So we're going back, nearly 50 years ago. What's a guess on his net worth at age 43? And you'll see in a moment why I picked that. We got 15 million, 500 million, 10 million, 20,000, 3 million, a billion. Reality, he was worth $34 million. Now, 34 million is a fortune, yet it's nothing compared to $160 billion. And so when you go back and you look at how did he do it, and again, the graph doesn't show perfectly on the screen, but he started working at age 15. He had a $6,000 net worth. You go all the way over there, 43 years old, he's worth $34 million. Now, for all of us, right, as we're on our journey, there's a point where it feels like things aren't moving as fast as we want, right? They're not moving as quickly as we'd expect. So what do you think Warren Buffett was doing during this period of time? What was he doing for the first 43 years when it looks like he wasn't quite moving based on his trajectory? And throw it in the chat. What was he actually doing those first 43 years? Yeah, Brian, at 90% of his wealth. Brian, could even be more. We could do the math. But what was he doing those first 43 years? What was he doing? He was accumulating. That's right. He was skill building, strategizing, buying. He's compounding. Compounding what, right? He's compounding both his money, but his relationships. So people don't realize he's building the skills, he's studying, he's working his mindset, he's building his relationships. Then look what happens in the next 4 years. He goes almost doubles his net worth in 4 years. Took him 43 years to get to 34 million, and then bam, he almost doubles it. Then look what happens in the next 6 years. He 10x's it in the next 6. And from there, it just kind of goes off the charts. And so, by the way, everyone watching this, your plan looks the same. It's going to feel like you're doing all the right things, but the way it works, it's a weird J curve that honestly takes off like a snowball, and then it just starts rolling and rolling. It's the compounding nature of putting your money to work and not touching it and letting it keep going. We've got calculators. If you want to scan this, it'll just take you to a page to run different calculations, which I'm going to walk you through in a minute if you want to run your own. I'll give you a second to scan that. It's just going to take you to a page where you can do some calculations. And I'm going to walk you, or you can go to bewealthycalculator.com, either way. So I want to imagine that someone on here, and by the way, you can ignore the ages. I'm just using a 30-year period of time. I picked age 40 and 70, but it could be age 20 and 50. It's just a 30-year period. And I want you to imagine that you got $500,000 currently invested, and every month you're putting $3,500 with that, and you're going to get an 8% return on your money. How much money is that in 30 years? Let's see some guesses in the chat. What's the 30-year period of time? You start with 500,000 bucks. You're putting away $3,500, and you're making 8% on your money. How much money is that? It's a guess. $1.6 million, $2 million, $50 million. Good guesses. $10 million. So I run this calculator all the time, and I'm looking, okay, I invested 500,000 initially. My total contributions were 1.2 million. So really a little less than 90% of the growth here came from just letting it work. So now I'm going to keep everything the same. All the numbers are exactly the same except the one at the bottom. I went from an 8% return to a 12% return. Now, how much money is it? We know that an 8% return is $10 million. If we get 4% more, which isn't a ton, how much money is that? What's your guess now? So we know the first one's 10 million. We know this will be more than 10 million. Virginia, first guess, nailed it. $30 million. $30 million. Now look, you contributed the same 1.2 million, but you got $30 million, 4% different. Like 90, what is that? 95% of the return comes from just putting your money to work and let it work. Now let's use Warren Buffett's target return, 20%. 30-year period of time. We know that an 8% return is 10 million, a 12% return is 30 million, and a 20% return. What's your guess on how much money this is? While those guesses are coming in, I spend time in this calculator modeling out where I will be at different points in the future. 100 million is the guess, $272 million. Now let's think about that for a minute. It was the same amount of money put away, radically different outcomes. So what you know, the relationships you have, how you think about your money, and the strategy you employ can take you to be worth 10 million, $30 million, or $272 million, all based on choice on the decisions that you make. So if we know all of that, we know we should do it, then why aren't there more millionaires? Why aren't more people ridiculously wealthy? We understand the mechanics, but why doesn't it exist? Number one, what stops people from becoming a millionaire? They need to revisit their capital. They don't trust that the assets, their wealth, will hold their value. Meaning I bought something great. Bitcoin went from $120 a coin and it got down to 83 and now it's at 93 and I'm freaking out. I sell it, right? I don't trust it'll hold its value. So that's the number one reason. Someone says they want it all now. What keeps people from becoming a millionaire? They're a paper millionaire versus a cash flow millionaire. Paper wealth based on high multiples feels false. So they want to get their wealth into something tangible. I always give a story. I've got these two buddies of mine that are both worth exactly about $50 million. One of them is a rancher and he owns all this land, like 10,000 plus acres of land. They're like in like a business like Yellowstone, just not near as cool, like the Yellowstone TV show. And every year it's a struggle to pay the taxes on the land. They're a paper millionaire. I have another buddy who has all $50 million in triple net commercial. He's got an incredible cash flowing assets, and he lives exactly like you think he would, going to the greatest places on the planet, traveling, spending time with people he wants. And the difference was having a cash flow based net worth versus a paper net worth. So as you go build your net worth and go through the exercise we're going to give you, I would have you think about, am I investing more in paper or more in cash flow? There's no judgment. For me, every part of my net worth is invested into assets that pay me cash flow. Cash flow sets you free. There is a correlation between your net worth and cash flow, no doubt. But as the example of the rancher, you could have all of your money invested in things that don't make money, and you could feel really poor even though you have a crazy net worth. Next, what stops people from becoming a millionaire? The urge to be liquid. They think cash is real and everything else isn't real. So they have a constant need to sell things and convert back to cash at some point, right? You've got to trust the assets you invest in, and what works. Showing that's where I started a little bit ago is what could you invest in 2009? The key is you had to hold it all the way through, right? Had you sold in 2017 or 18, you would have experienced all that happened in COVID. Next, what stops me from becoming a millionaire? Debt. And debt is always I feel like a four-letter bad word, but it shouldn't be. And how much debt should each person have? And I'm looking at Kim and Presley, just happen to be in the middle of my screen right here. It's debt. There's no judgment on debt. It's personal to you. How much should you have? It's whatever you feel comfortable with where your head hits the pillow. You shouldn't over leverage anything, but you should make sure debt's a tool. Just don't use it the wrong way. So the weight of debt causes people to want to pay things off early, or sometimes they don't have sufficient cash flow, so they go sell their assets as the only means to pay the debt. And they don't trust again. They don't trust that it'll hold its value, so we sell when the timing is right versus buy forever. Debt can enhance your returns. Anytime you're taking on debt, you should have reserves that back up the debt so you're not taking risk. Next, the need or urge to live high on the hog before their cash flow can support them in that way. This caused them to liquidate regular to cash and future earnings potential so that they can live high on the hog today. So this is there's a couple of things there. People spend it all, right? That's what stops them. This is one of the big ones. What the truly wealthy do, and I've got friends that are ridiculously wealthy. If they want to buy something for their personal lives that's going to cost $1,000 a month or $3,000 a month, they go buy the asset first that creates the 3,000 that pays for the thing they want in their personal life. Go buy the assets first and then use the cash flow to your personal life so you're never going backwards. Next, what stops people from becoming a millionaire? They don't see people as an investment or an asset. They don't see people as an investment or an asset. I'll give you an example. Let's pretend that right now there's a home out there. It's worth $300,000. It would rent for $2,500 a month, and we would make $24,000 a year net income if we paid all cash. And how many people in the chat would buy this house? $300,000 house. It's a great area. It's going to appreciate. All the right things are happening. $300,000 house. You could buy it. You could absolutely buy it right now for $200,000. Right? Most people overwhelmingly would buy that. Now, I want you to imagine we could go hire a person. And this person's job is they're going to wake up every day and they're going to go out and find investments that you could go do in your business. So they're going to go find the real estate investments in your market, and they're going to underwrite them. And every day when you wake up, there's 5 deals sitting on your desk. And this person costs $200,000 a year, same price as the house. Now, my question is, how much money could you make from this person? You could buy the investments you want, the ones that you don't want to buy. You could sell to your investors, or you could partner with people, or however that would work. But just imagine that you got 5 deals sitting on your desk every day. Now, the question is, with that $200,000 investment, do you think we could make $24,000, or could we make more than that? My argument is you can make more. Actually, I've lived this for the last 15 years of my life, where I woke up every day with 5 deals on my desk. And I can tell you, if you pay someone $200,000 a year to do it, you probably can make $1 million a year doing it. It's radically different. Now, for those that said they would buy the house, how many of us are running out today to go hire that person for $200,000? Same investment, radically different outcome, but how many of us are going to go run and hire that person? And usually if I'm teaching this live, I go, well, why aren't you going to go hire the person? And they'll say, well, because it's like unknown, right? The value that person will create in your world largely depends on you. Whereas the asset, we all understand, we could drive it. We get the rental property business naturally as real estate agents. What I would tell you is to start thinking as people as an asset. By the way, you wouldn't have to spend $200,000 for the person I could describe, but what would it look like if you went and built an investment business that every single day you were looking at deals using your skills that you know better than anyone to go invest in real estate on your street, in your city, to create cash flow and get you free in your life? So start realizing people are the greatest investment that you will ever invest in. Start thinking about it that way. Next, what stops people from becoming a millionaire? They don't have a documented wealth building plan they trust. They got rich instead of purposely building wealth, so they don't actually know what to duplicate or what caused them to get wealthy. Good news for this will be an issue for no one here because we're going to email you out some homework with that $50 million plan, and you'll go create that. And then we'll talk about how you use that plan for a check-in point, making sure that you're making the progress you want. And you will see that you can absolutely do exactly what I'm talking about and create your $50 million plan and live into it. One more thing, what stops people from becoming a millionaire? They spend more than they make. They spend all that they make. If you spend 100% of it, there's no way to invest. Now, what I would always say is that doesn't matter how little amount of money you make, everyone can save something. So instead of living so, quote, high on the hog, you've got to go figure out a way to make more than you spend and create some distance there. Lastly, they don't study money or the rules of investing. There are so many great ways and areas where you can learn, study, whether that's YouTube, podcasts, books, tapes, courses. Start studying money and the rules of investing. Two books that I think should be mandatory reading. He's my favorite author right now. Morgan Housel wrote two incredible books. The first one's called The Psychology of Money. The Psychology of Money is his first book. It just tells you how you think about money and how we're pre-wired as human beings to be emotional with our money. And we make emotional decisions and then we justify them with logic. So he'll walk you through that. The second one's his newest book. It only came out about a month ago, and it's The Art of Spending Money. It talks about how should you think about spending money. It's not going to tell you what you should spend your money on. It should tell you how should you think about spending. It's one of the best two books I could tell you to read on money and investing. Jim Carrey's not known for being the greatest philosopher, but he's got an incredible quote. If you're not willing to downgrade your lifestyle for a year to have a lifestyle you want forever, you care too much about what other people think. It is so true. So many people are buying things and doing things to get the respect of people that they don't know and actually will never know. It's wild, right? So if you're not willing to downgrade your lifestyle for a year, you might care too much about what other people think. So there's three myths around investing that I think people might have if you're going through this. And people have all these programs they've been running where they say, I don't need to be wealthier. I don't need to be an investor is the first myth. My job will take care of it. No, it won't. You need to be an investor. Your job is not your financial wealth, right? There's two different primary things here. One, you go work for money, right? That's our day job. We all have one. I'm a real estate agent just like you. I've got different companies I'm a CEO in. And so I've got a day job. That's I work for money. The separate thing is my money works for me, right? Two totally separate skills. Next, I don't want or need to be financially wealthy. I'm happy with what I have. Truth, you need to open your eyes. You do want and need to be financially wealthy. And I'll tell you, even if not for yourself, for others. I could tell you that wealth has allowed me to do incredible things for other people. The example I would give you most recently, about a year and a half ago, my dad had an emergency back surgery. He was going to be paralyzed. He worked in his own factory for about 50 years, and his back gave out, and he had to go emergency back surgery. I happened to be out of the country. I had to charter a plane, fly in, and I got there, and he's in the middle of nowhere with his back fusion, and there was no recovery. And the reality was he was going to die there. And I made the decision that I was going to move him medically. And the doctor said, you can't move him. He'll die. And I said, well, he's going to die if he's here. So I figured out how to do it. And there's basically hospitals in the sky. I flew in a jet, put him on there, which was incredibly costly. I got him out of there, and it absolutely saved his life. But without wealth, I couldn't have done that. I couldn't afford to write that check. My dad's fairly well off. He would not have never wrote that check to do it. And I've had to write a few checks for him to save his life. So it's not even about me being financially wealthy. There may be other people that you care about that you want to help. Myth number 3, it doesn't matter if I want it or need it, I just can't do it. The truth is you can't predict what you can or can't do until you start trying. So now here's the investing myths. Number 1 myth I hear all the time when I teach this: investing's complicated. It's absolutely not true. It's as complicated as you make it, but there's really simple ways to get started. And the best part is your education. There's so many tools and ways. You could find the greatest people investing. If you want to invest in triple net commercial or natural gas royalties or debt, create your own debt fund or hard money lending or whatever, there are people that can walk you through it, and it's very simple. It's only as complicated as you make it. Myth number two, the best investments require knowledge most people don't have. Truth is, your best investments will be in areas you can or already understand. My thing to real estate agents, the best piece of real estate is the one that's in your market that you know more about than anyone else, and you have an unfair advantage. Third myth is investing is risky. I'll lose all my money. Investing is not risky. Risk is actually what happens in the gaps of the knowledge that you don't have. So the way to reduce risk is to become more knowledgeable. You could also, risk can be adjusted. When we're buying a home, we could take less debt as an example. Myth number four, successful investors are able to time the market. Reality is we can't time the market. It's time in the market. And the last one is all the good investments have taken. Everybody's already figured it out. The reality is there's opportunities everywhere. And right now, as we're looking at December 3rd, 2025, I'm actually this year, towards the end of this year, the last 30 days and the next 30, I'll close on the two biggest deals of my real estate career. I already closed on one last week. All that there are opportunities in this market right now, you've just got to know what to look for. And we'll talk about some of that in one of the future sessions. So if you've got your workbook out or if you printed that, or we could drop in the chat if you need it, I would have you write down, what's your personal myth? What's of the three myths there, what's the number one that speaks to you? I don't need to be an investor. I don't want or need to be financially wealthy. It doesn't matter if I want or need, I just can't do it. You can write that down. And yeah, Mary, if you would drop our workbook in the chat if you can, or I'll make sure we get that here in a second. Number two, what's the investing myth? When you read those, which one of those speaks to you? And then how can you change that thinking pattern? And then I'd have you write down in your notes, because we're going to go through it. What's the number one thing holding you back from financial wealth? Because as we go through these series of sessions with you, my goal is to, number one, wipe out all of those, give you a clear path forward, and get you on the path to get everything that you wanted. So I want to talk about effort and results. And so this comes, I will tell you, it's very much public knowledge. My coach, my mentor, and my really good friend is Gary Keller. And he showed me this about 3 years ago, and it had a huge impact on my life. And so it's, how do we get stuck in the middle? And I want you to just think about your money for a minute. So on the far left is complete failure with your money. On the far right is massive success with your money. And right in the middle is average people with their money. And so to get to the middle of average with your money, all you have to do is whatever you want to do. If you want to get to the right side of average with your money, you've got to move past what you want to do, and you're going to have to do some things that you don't want to do. In other words, the measure of success is in direct proportion of what you're willing to do when you don't want to do it. Now, by the way, I don't know that I love this answer, but it's the reality of success, right? It's doing the things that I don't want to do. If I want to be beyond average, I got to do some things I don't want to do right when I don't want to do them. Next thing I'll show you, so same chart here, those yellow lines, right? It's the same average and success. So when you get to the far right side of success, you drop down. And at each new level of success, you've got to put forth a new above average effort. You've got to go get new skills, new mindsets, new relationships, and you got to keep growing. If you don't, that's okay, but you'll begin a life of average. Albeit you're more successful than others, it's average for you. Now, I didn't love this answer, and I went to Gary. I said, I don't like this at all. Here I become successful. I drop down. I keep working on I've always got to constantly work on getting better. And he said, Brett, these are laws of success, right? Whether it's with your money, with your relationships, right? For when my wife and I's relationship, we've been married for 20 years. We're more madly in love today than we were 20 years ago. I'm one of those weird guys that loves his wife, and my wife's my best friend. I'll go out with my buddies, and they're always like, "Oh, you know how it is, Brett. The old ball and chain." Like, I actually don't get that at all. My wife's my queen. I adore her. But I've got to constantly work on my marriage, right? Or it's going to get stale. I've got to constantly growing, learning, getting better. And by putting in that above average effort, so I get an above average result. So I made this joke about 75 hard, and I did this like 5 years ago. It was that time where every single picture was like dudes online at the gym taking a picture every morning shirtless. which is just an incredible way to start your day. Nothing wrong with 75 hard. I think it's awesome. I just don't know if posting online makes your biceps bigger. But the point I made a joke, like what would happen if we tried the 75 hard for wealth? And so no Netflix for 75 days, no TV. I want you to read 45 minutes in the morning, and then I want you to take a financial course for 45 minutes or podcasts in the evening. One time a week, you're going to go spend time with a mentor. One time a week, you're going to spend time with a peer that's on the same journey as you. And one time a week, you're going to meet with someone that you're going to inspire. Eliminate all the negative people in your life. Reduce your time with friends that aren't on your same journey just for 75 days. So I kind of made this as a Facebook post, as a joke, and I talked about it in some of my workshops. And I was teaching in Atlanta, and I came back like a year later, and the guy, raised his hand for a testimonial, and he's like, "Hey, I tried your 75 hard for wealth, and it was a total failure." I was like, "Ooh, terrible testimonial, but thank you." And he goes, "Here's the thing. I left there. I tried. It didn't work because I tried doing it alone. I got like 3 days in or 7 days in, and I fell off of it." And then he goes, "Okay. Second time I did it, I found 20 people. We got a group text, and every morning we were texting the book, the course, and what we were working on and what we learned." And he goes, about 3 weeks in, I'd lost 15 pounds. I'm like, "Hey, well, this isn't the real 75 hard. This is actually you reading and stuff." And he goes, "No, well, what happened, because you made me get more connected to my money, I started logging to my bank account every night. And I started seeing that I was going out a lot, drinking and partying, and I saw the money it was costing me. So I just quit going out for the 75 days. And so when I quit drinking at night, I found that I had more energy in the morning. It's like, started waking up, I started going to the gym." And he goes, "I not only have changed financially, I've changed my fitness, I've changed my life as a result of this." So I would challenge you a little. What would it look like if you went this hard on your wealth for 75 days? The average person spends 20 hours planning their vacation. When was the last time you spent 20 hours planning your financial life? Right? Most of us are so excited to do those other things. Yet, if you spend the time planning financially, you could go anywhere you want on vacation and have all the time. So what's your E to E ratio? What's your education to entertainment ratio? I'm caught up on all the shows. I'm totally there, right? But if I'm going to spend an hour watching the latest episode of Landman tonight, which I love, by the way, Landman, awesome show, I've got to spend an hour reading or doing a podcast before. And I hold myself to an education to entertainment ratio of 1 to 1, and I do the education part first. So I drop a lot of this on our podcast. If you want to scan this, I'd love for you. There's tons of different things. We talk about wealth. We talk about how to optimize for credit card rewards, points, track strategies, all kinds of stuff on there. If you want more content, go check out our podcast. We drop it every single week. You could do that there. You go to bewealthy.com. We have a newsletter that comes out. You could jump on that. It's just ideas. Same thing we're talking about here. We're talking about your money and how you think differently about it. And so I know we're right at the end of time, but I want everyone for the next series here, we're going to make sure that we have a way to get you the 30-year plan exercise and your balance sheet. Your balance sheet's your net worth. Every single item you have, every checking account, every property, all need to go on separate lines. We've got to get your net worths together because we're going to come back and talk about your 30-year plan. So 2 exercises. There's a video on how to do your 30-year plan. Don't overthink it, and don't think about how you're going to go build the $50 million. You're just putting in what assets do you think that they would look like. You can see the links are in the chat right now. Put together your net worth. This is something you're going to do every single month on the first business day of the month forever. Because if you're not tracking your net worth every single month, you're not in the game. You've got to be doing that. And the point of the whole exercise, we now know you want to be worth $50 million in 30 years. We know that, as an example, you're worth $1 million today. What I want to know is, well, where do you need to be in January of 26 to be on track for 50 million? Where do you need to be on January of 2027 to be on track for $50 million? So don't make it smaller. Just stick with the plan. There's a point to all of this. I promise I'll land all this plane in the series of sessions we have coming up. But so your homework, complete the balance sheet, complete the 30-year plan, and I will see you back here very soon for the next session.